Right, and we should be up on YouTube. Right, we should be up on YouTube. Oh, wow, that's loud. Alright, team, we should be coming up on all the platforms. We should be streaming like real professionals. Huzzah! Right, I gotta finish putting the last bits of graphs together so we can talk about the weird flags ahead of Ascension, but whew, the news is thin this week. Unless you want to hear about me making Python loggers, because I made a real nice one this week. God, I finally fixed one of our biggest errors. Jesus Pete. It's been bugging me for 2 weeks. We've been nuking logs. Because of one itty-bitty tiny little bug. One line problem is what it came down to. So the cuteness of this, and I really should submit a bug back to the Python core guys. So logging has a timed rotating file handler, so that if you wanted a log to start every day at midnight, it will walk your logs forward in time, and it'll take care of all of the messiness of making sure that you have the right number of logs, and that it just makes life a lot easier. So this is great, except for when it doesn't work. The timed rotating file handler will not only not make your next log, not like it won't archive your log. It'll also destroy the log you're working on, meaning you don't log to anywhere. Which means when your timed rotating file log handler stops, it nukes the log you had, and then continues forward with no log file, screwing everything up. Which is just really fucking cute. But good news is I found a test that tests it, and now we actually have like real big boy tests on our shiny new loggers, so that I never have to use a print statement ever again, which is cool. I mean, Forrest Gump style, which is not Gump, sorry, Caddyshack style. So I got that going for me. Let me use my memes correctly. And that solved a bit. I don't think any of my coworkers really get it. They kind of just look at me like, yeah, it's a logger, but it's my logger, and it's nice, and it's good at what it does, and I made it. So that should make life a lot easier. And the other nice thing that I added to it is that now I also have a logger that goes out to... Ooh, that's interesting. That's going in the list. Oops, not there. It goes here. So I have this handy thing that says, oh, well, if you have a live service that needs to stay on constantly, like a web service, and something goes terribly wrong, like, I don't know, it can't send emails, or it loses connection to a database, or it can't talk to another module that should be there, it'll spam a Discord chat about it, which is super handy. Not for my partners in the Prosper Dev Fleet channel, though, because when you test the logger, it spams everything. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. Here, you guys might appreciate. Here, we'll go there, like that. When you're testing the logger, it looks like this. Where it just spams and spams and spams all the helper messages as it does its thing. So that's cool. Oops, not that button. If you ever wanted to know what it's like being in the dev fleet, that's what it's like being in the dev fleet. Lots of spam. But like I said, now I actually have tests on everything, and we'll have a Prosper Logger library put together, which I think I can push out to look up where I was pointing those things, because I found a cartoony place that isn't PyPI to host this stuff, because I really don't want to publish to PyPI yet. Mostly that I just don't feel like it's good enough yet. I rely pretty heavily on... ooh, that's interesting. I rely pretty heavily on config files, and the way that I use them now is just not really great for distribution. It means that it's easy for people to break the stuff, you know, or for it to work just fine on my machine and screw up on yours. So I gotta work on that. I think the logger is actually one of our closest steps there. Lachesis A. How many Lachesis sell a day? So yeah, we want to look at the Gnosis. The Gnosis. But if I can get the logger running correctly and all the other common functions running to spec, it should make everything else running under the hood a hell of a lot easier. That cesium spike, man, like, I should talk about that. Ooh, I can talk about that. Sweet. That goes here. We put this one here. But we can't talk about cobalt, can we? Nope. Everybody wants to talk about the Orca except for me. Which is fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. Okay. Sorry about that, Rodin. I want to see bombers. Nope. What about interdictors? Nope. Boring. So boring. Melted nanoribbons are also kind of boring. Alright, I think we have enough slides for a show. That's 50. So that makes a show. I really need to work on. So somebody, who was it, was talking to me on Twitter, and I feel a little bit bad for him. David of Dake. was talking to me about using Plex as a inflation hedge, and now that I've got through a random walk down Wall Street, I don't think it's as bad an idea as I used to think. But the reversal means you're getting clobbered now. And we'll talk about this when we get into the show. The collapse in RSI means that we're actually looking at a pretty decent chance to buy if you're just looking at the charts. But I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, even though oversold. Plex very rarely touches oversold. But you have to set your Plex overbought bar like at 80, 85 as opposed to the 70 you're supposed to set it at. But it's the only one that I really believe the RSI is poorly done for. Like you really got to set it a couple of ticks higher. But he was talking about using Plex as an inflation hedge, and I get where he's coming from. He's not wrong, because that's what you would do IRL, is you would use precious metals and commodities as a way to hold value through inflation. But EVE doesn't have inflation. It hasn't for years now, and I seem to be the only person who thinks this. Well, and Quant agrees, but who he doesn't say it as loud as he probably should. Actually, he doesn't say it as often as he should. He put it to bed like 2 years ago and then never came back to it. But the real purchasing power outside of Plex for ISK has stayed relatively stable. You can buy the same number of supers with your ISK, the same number of PvP ships, the same amount of mining and mission equipment. All of that has stayed relatively stable in the face of changes. The individual prices may have changed, but the cost of business has not really moved. I'm going to see, no promises, but I was hoping to go into my Z Killboard data and maybe do a ribbon plot of the levels of mean ISK per kill, essentially. And you could do like a 595 ribbon around it and talk about, well, over the last year, the value per kill hasn't really moved. And since the way the commodities are balanced, it's really, really hard to actually have real inflation. But Plex doesn't. Plex plays by its own rules. Okay, like when we talk about inflation, we talk about the game as a whole. You don't talk about inflation with one product. You talk about your ISK not going as far, and the only thing that the only product that doesn't follow that. That has any inflation whatsoever are the RMT items. Now, RMT items are weird and funny. They're not balanced like everything else. They come out of... they're generated instantaneously by real-life money. And they... they just... They don't communicate any more value other than the quote-unquote value of ISK, right? That the value underlying the thing. It says that when I need a lot of cash, the price of Plex will fall because that is the easiest way to get into liquid cash. And when cash supplies are high, then Plex will absorb that extra cash and rise. Like, it's purely a measure of cash supply, of liquidity. It's not an inflation measure, it's a liquidity measure. And that's fine. Like, if you want to see Plex go down, you need to make cash tighter. And for instance, looking at the numbers from last month, you might want to start looking at bounties and saying, well, bounty payouts are on quite a tear, and they present a huge amount of value coming into the game. This is printed ISK into the game, and more printed ISK just goes straight into Plex. It doesn't go into anything else, because everything else requires time to generate, right? And those balances are far more fair when it requires player hours to actually generate them, as opposed so like you see relative stability across the meta markets. You see relative stability across the material markets, in so much as supply and demand. And you see stability in even the faction ships, like faction battleships, have been coming down in price over the last 2 or 3 years because enough of them are being farmed to meet the demand. And so all of that extra liquid could go to other things, right? Like, you could start overpaying miners. You could start growing your ISK per hour distribution, but instead, where the excess cash goes is not into production margins, and not into miner salaries, and not into higher farming bounties for ratting. It goes into Plex. It gets absorbed by and large into Plex. So that's the only thing that inflates. And like I said, and I'll say it 1,000 times, and you can go ahead and fight 1v1 me at the sun about it. The Plex is only a liquidity measure. It is not a greater balance beam to talk about the value of ISK. Now, I know in our hearts we feel the rise of Plex, because the rise of Plex talks to us in real life dollars, right? Just like a rise in gold prices would talk to you about holding bullion if you held bullion. But that's all it does, is it's going to move by its own forces. It doesn't matter how many meters cubed of minerals get mined. It has no balance on it. The amount of moon goo coming out of Null does nothing to it. Gas and products coming out of Wormhole, literally zero. But the cash getting printed by bounties, the cash getting moved by fees, these are what feed the rise in Plex. And the more business we do, the higher. So the two things you want to see is a lowered cash supply. You want to see faucets reduced, so that the amount of money that you can gain per unit time is harder to get. And two, you want to see increased ISK velocity, because that means that cash is moving through the system more. And both of those things will drive the price of Plex down, because the required liquidity, the liquidity, like potential liquidity, if we're talking in physics terms, versus the kinetic liquidity of actually moving through the system, both of these factors will drive value out of Plex, as people need the cash to execute things other than storing wealth. So it's a wealth store. It's a liquidity measurement. It's not at all an inflationary measurement. Like, we could even talk about Forex trading as a driver for it, but it has nothing to do with the game. It has so very little to do with the game. And other than particular shortages, CCP doesn't have to do jack crap. Oh, and nuking bad actors. Those are the two things that CCP has to do. So I really should put like a whole a whole show together about it that's specifically about that. I think I could talk about 30 minutes about that. And might not actually be a terrible use of your guys' time. But yeah, I get really fucking annoyed by market and discussions that talk about inflation and they include Plex, and Plex is just not. It's a magic item that lives in its own little fucking world, and you can't pin the value of everything else to that. It's like saying that you need to make sure that your burger flippers minimum wage is measured in ounces of gold, which, right? Like if we put minimum wage workers on the gold standard, it would be fucking ridiculous, right? Like all of a sudden burger flippers would be making, $1,300 an hour when things are hot, and like nothing when things are cold. Like it would be completely ridiculous, and it's that ridiculous. Okay, that's where I put it on there. And it's just that, like, I mean, I've been through the same economics classes as just about every other armchair economist, right? Like, I took my 101s and 102s and supply and demand and guns and butter and all that other bullshit. And my problem is that people usually only manage to get like a little fraction of what the real picture is, and only by really digging in and trying to get the rest of the vectors put together do you have an even hope of actually applying the theories that you learned in your class. So, and Defiant Daniel in Twitch has it right. The more liquid cash floating in the market will drive up the price of Plex. Again, it's like I said, if you think of it in terms of, again, I come from electrical engineering, so it's voltage and current. Potential liquidity, which is cash, liquid cash in your wallet right now. The higher that goes, the higher the price of Plex goes, right? Because you'll want to go store it there. If that number comes down, well, you can't afford the high price of Plex. If you do not have the liquidity handy, the demand side of the equation falls apart. And then the other half of it is liquidity velocity, where you care about how much cash you need to do business and how much of that business you will be doing. And the higher that goes, the less cash can get stored in Plex, the more you need to come to your supply side of Plex and liquidate it to actually participate. We saw this in World War B. We saw this with the launch of Citadel. So high velocities are good for Plex dropping. High bounty payouts, high positive net fountains are bad for the price of Plex and will make it rise. So, Roden is asking if we can draw lines on Prosper charts at Mogul. I'll talk with Jeronica once I get the APIs up and going. I do have a JavaScript package that can do that. I just don't know jack shit about JavaScript, so you're going to have to talk to Jeronica if you want a better front end, and I'm working on making a better back end, so... So we got about 10 minutes to go before the show starts. I want to get a few things out of the way. One, if you're not civil, I'm gonna swing the ban hammer. I know that it was a particularly bad week here in the States, and I don't give a shit what side of the thing you're on. If you're gonna be a dick, I'm gonna ban you. And if you're gonna be a dick in the comments on YouTube, I'm gonna fucking ban you. Okay? I don't get enough, I only get like 10 comments a week. It's not that hard to ban you guys. Please just be kind. Don't be a dick. Not everyone is a straw man who can, like, you're not all of a sudden some political pariah, and we're not fighting straw men. We all have our fucking opinions, but this is a show about spaceship graphs, and if I hear one goddamn thing about Trump's America, I swear to God. We're just gonna nip that in the bud, okay? Just don't be a dick. That's the end of it, right? Number 2, again, we are working really hard on, I am working really hard on getting a version 2 of our code base up and running. If you guys have seen, we are on GitHub. I do have links. They should be in the doobly-doo. I can never remember if they are. Excuse me. But we're working really hard on getting a whole new product base up. And if you're interested in that back-end development, if you like shit posting about Python, ping me after the show, or email me, or reach out to me on any of the platforms. I will. We've started up a Discord channel. I don't want to move the general audience there yet, because I still like the Tweet Fleet Slack. But if you're a developer, if you have meaningful opinions towards development, I really need the help. There's a shitload of work, and I am running out of weeks to do it in. Let's see, what else? I mean, we're making great progress. Like, as unsexy as it sounds, as I was talking earlier in the thing, I should have our logging situation figured out by the end of the week. All with tests and everything. Our common package is looking really fucking good right now. And that means I can move back onto the cron scripts that'll help feed the databases. So I have the database core ready. I have the common that's going to run around everything, and now I need to work on the front end that's going to feed the databases. And then last piece is that I need to work on the front end that feeds you guys the data. So I want you guys to be able to make the same graphs I do. So I can just publish our scripts out to you guys. I can go have a whole big gist of our scripts and all that shit, and you guys can just pull your heart's content, and we can start moving forward on that. But, like I said, goal is to have that done by the end of the year, and I am running out of year to do it in. Whew. Again, it's Python 3.5. We're trying to get everything up and running. If you guys have opinions, come bug me. I'm looking for people to help. And Veronica, no, I do not have salvage in this week's show, but I can go look at it. That's not the right one. That's also not the right one. Salvage isn't that interesting. There's a couple of interesting ones, but why are people spending 10 billion on salvage? You're gonna make me pull the graphs again, aren't you? 5 minutes before the show starts. This is gonna screw up the frickin' thing. So patience while that runs. Things might get a little choppy. Let's see. We're done with that. We're okay. Again, the show is made with Python and R. All the graphs are made in R. Again, I have links to everything if you guys want to make it. If you guys want me to rant about it, I can rant about my love and hatred of R at the same time. After the show is done, the show runs about 45 minutes. We'll start at the top of the hour. I don't tend to answer questions during the show, but we will have a 30-minute Q&A afterwards. What else? We got 5 more minutes before the thing starts, and I have to pull the rigs graphs, apparently, according to the little birdies in my ears. According to Mr. Jeronica and Seika. Let's see. Again, exciting pre-show here. Well, I mean, Seika, I'd love to go do it, but rewriting that graph is not something I can do on the fly. It's going to take me 30 minutes to fix the graph. Anything else? Anything else? Oh, go check out the blog. Turns out I got auto-moderated on Reddit this week, and nobody saw my October numbers, and that made me sad, because I worked really hard on making new graphs for that, and nobody gave a shit. It was one of our least successful blogs in a very long time. And you know how much I love numbers. I love numbers that go up. And yeah, our numbers suck this month, and I hate it. That put me in a bad mood on Monday, and then I get the 1-2 punch on Tuesday. So yeah, it's fine. Everything's fine. We're fine. What the shit? Maybe. Well, now that we're not opposite, what's the show? Open comms. I gotta find out. I gotta find the next person. I gotta find the next thing to words to pimp the show. I gotta go make new friends. But yes, we are in the Pacific time zone, based here in Seattle now. Loving the town, especially when it's not raining. It's super nice when not everything is damp. Okay, that's interesting. Thank you, Seika and Jeronica. I would not have posted that, but it's good to do it. So give me a sec to put that in here. Yep, we put it here. So, salvage T1. What about T2? T2 is not interesting. We're not going to look at T2. Okay, that's fine. So, let's get that all zoomed out. No. I don't give you guys anything really useful. I just tell you the direction things are going. This isn't Mad Money. I'm not betting against you guys. You got to share it. You got to share the love, and if the numbers go up, I will keep making things. That's how the internet works. So with that, let me make sure the fan is off so you don't have to hear that all night. Be like a real freaking professional. Get the recording started, and we can get this show on the road. Be sure to share with all of your friends. Words. Okay. 2 seconds. We will be right back. Oops. knocking things over, making a mess. Professionals. Good evening, and welcome to another episode of the Eve Prosper Market Show, where we tell you all the market news that you need to know, especially ahead of Ascension, which is due to release, I believe, on Tuesday. But with that, let's go ahead and start where we always do, with some quick show news. Number one, thank you everybody who is tuned in live. We are at a new time in game, same time US, unless you're in Arizona. We have moved to 0400 from 0300, thanks to the time change, but that's still 8 p.m. Pacific time. We should be there going on until the next time change, so life is good. Expect still to not have a show for Thanksgiving, but otherwise I think we have everything in line to keep producing shows. Next, if you want to follow the show, the best way to do so is remember Eve Prosper. That will get you to Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and our blog. We did publish this Monday a blog on a response to the economic numbers from CCP Quant, and it's a very interesting attitude we have right ahead of Ascension. We talked about some of it on last week's show, but I get into some of the deeper points that I just cannot do here on the air, so be sure to go check that out at eveprosper.com. Last, if you want to support the show, the very best way to do so is through our Patreon at patreon.com/eveprosper. We've had a couple of new patrons this week, and I got to thank you guys. Our patrons keep us on the air ad-free every week, and it means the world to us. It keeps our server bills paid. It keeps us in the right software. It keeps us on the air every week. For you guys. If you can't support us directly, feel free to just share the link to the show. Numbers growing is always good. So with that, let's cover just a couple of seconds of EVE Online news. The two big pieces of news in the last couple of days is, one, the new EVE mobile app, which is interesting. It's got a couple of hitches and bugs. I still think most of the third-party developed ones are better. One moment. Anyway, I still think the third-party developed ones are better for now, but the second piece of news was that we're getting a new API, ESI. I don't remember what it stands for, but it sure is neat. It's really great for the dev fleet, seeing as you can model and test your calls right in the documentation. It comes with a documentation forward approach, and it is slick. It still means that we need OAuth connections to do almost anything, which doesn't fill me with a lot of hope, because OAuth can be tricky. I got to figure out how to do it with an automatic script, because if I need to do logins, that's going to be problematic. But otherwise, it's really neat. I really appreciate the new work that went into it. Devs have worked really hard to get it out. And it should mean that we can finally kill the XML API, which I've never really been a fan of. And I know most other devs would rather floss themselves to death with razor wire than work with the V2 API. But with that, let's go ahead and get right into the meat of the show. I do have my laser pointer, hurrah. And start where we always do, in Plex. So I mentioned last week that our territory here was particularly hot. Actually, no, this would have been all the way back at Eve Vegas, geez. Which was in bubble territory, in my opinion. It's not unreasonable for Plex to be above the 70 RSI line here, but it tends to, when we see extended periods like this, it's a bad sign. It means that things have been too hot too long. And prices are sagging. We almost hit 125 during Eve Vegas, and now we are seeing a decline. Now, if we zoom all the way out, again, we're not terribly off the mark here. Again, this period here was a bit steeper than expected. This period right ahead of Vegas was a lot steeper than expected. So as far as a 60-day line goes, we're not doing terribly at the moment. But the weakness, this much weakness is actually unexpected. I expected it to level off, right around 125, come coasting down to 120 into Ascension, and we broke down through the 1-2 floor. Now, again, the other piece of advice here, now that we're in a uniquely falling territory, if we're going to keep talking like a chartist, is that the other piece of the Plex RSI puzzle is that Plex really doesn't go into the oversold territory. So this sharp decline here is particularly unseasonable. It's faster and longer than most declines go. Usually we see very rapid declines that level off, which again, we see this sort of 2 or 3 day pattern, which then levels off into a period of stability. As we see it go down, and this one actually hit the oversold territory, which again, if Plex ever hits oversold, you buy it, because this doesn't happen more than once a year. But again, we see collapse and back into rising, and collapse and back into rising. Like these collapse periods are only worth like 3 days, and we're almost at 2 weeks of weakness here. So this is unseasonable. This is I don't think this is going to be extended. But if we go zoom in on the supplies and demands, we can sort of see what's going on. Is that in the run up to Eve Vegas, we saw a real run on plexes where we were starting to run really short in supply at JITA. But once Eve Vegas finished, the supply constraints started to relax. And if I'm going to speculate, I think that's because a lot of players are deciding to just take a mini vacation ahead of Ascension rather than sink their money into Plex for the next 2 weeks. Now, once Ascension hits, I think we're going to see two things. One, we're going to see an increased demand here on the red line as people want to buy more Plex to convert, and we're going to see an increase in supply as I fully expect CCP to have a Plex sale. Now, as for when that Plex sale shows up, that is a piece of divination that I cannot give you right here on the show. It could happen anywhere from patch day to Black Friday. And during that period, if it doesn't show up on patch day, we have a real chance to have a run to 1.3. But if it does show up on patch day, I expect prices to start falling towards 1.1 ahead of Thanksgiving. It's a real coin toss from where I'm sitting right now. And without that key piece of information, all I can do is speculate. I can tell you what's going to happen if it happens. I just don't know when. That's the hardest part of doing this show, is that I can tell you directions, and I just I can draw out the line, but I can't tell you when the things change. So yeah. Oops. But like I said, we're at 120. Prices keep falling, and they have momentum to keep falling to 115. So we could be at 115 at the end of the weekend if this supply glut, and it's not even that much of a glut, doesn't turn around. Next, looking at RMT tokens. Again, we still see that skill extractors are leading in the value markets. We're still seeing this heat in the pilot resculpt certificates, which, again, I think is maybe one or two people expecting returning alphas to want to resculpt, which is interesting. But again, this gulf between prices is pretty ridiculous. and where we were seeing some leading and lagging in the extractor prices, we're back in sync, even if we are plus 1 or 2%. Next, the drop in Plex prices is good news for zombie farmers, as the margin on skill extractors is back up again. Again, we've seen things stay relatively stable at about a 725 per skill point premium on sell orders, with a lot of volatility on the buy orders. I expect the demand for consuming skill injectors to rise with Ascension, but it may take up to 2 weeks for that memo to get through the systems and get people who are converting from alphas to omegas, and then people who want to then use injectors to get a leg up. Alphas are going to be the number one target of these injectors, but I still think that there's a large segment of people who could be returning at 50 million skill points plus, and it's still not a great product to use at that level. So unless CCP comes out at the start of the year with an adjusted burning scale for injectors, an adjusted penalty scale, that's the word I wanted to use, then I still think the demand is going to be a little bit anemic, but again, the prices should be rising, and I hope that they start rising beyond what Plex drives. So getting into skill injectors on a decent buy order wouldn't be a terrible bet, but it's still pretty risky. Oops, that's the wrong direction. And then last, we see the prices are staying relatively stable. All of that growth in margin is basically the falling of Plex. But as you can see, where Plex has lost what is that? 5%. We're staying relatively stable on the skill injector front, so we're still holding pretty decent returns on the injectors as a Plex hedge, which is great, actually. And especially ahead of Ascension, I think this injectors are a much better bet than your Plex bet, personally. Moving on to our indexes. Number one, looking at our net trade values, things are starting to look brighter in the RMT markets. Here we can see skill trading is tracking up. Plex market is tracking up a little bit. Most of the heat is right now in the skill trading market. We're seeing a flatness in the mineral market. Again, to be expected. This should get really interesting once Ascension hits. And the ship margins, again, this is the weird thing. We saw a big dip ahead of Eve Vegas. We're starting to see that recovery. I'm hoping that alphas start driving this up with T1, but again, it's hard to find a trillion-isk worth of T1 ships. So I would... I'm hopeful things will start bubbling up. And again, if ISK velocities start going up, this should be good news for the lower ends of the market. I just don't know when we're going to get there. And then next, I don't know why this one looks the way it does with the weird border, but again, total destruction. This drop during Eve Vegas has me really worried ahead of Ascension. Again, this is where I'm driving my everybody's sitting around waiting for everyone else to do the things. And this slump in value destroyed is really bad news, at least on my fronts. So again, I'm really hoping that Ascension shows up. We see a big uptick in PvP counts. I would hope we get to 12,000 kills a day. That would be excellent as a running 7-day total. I don't think the value will move up much until we start seeing people fighting over space again. But 900 billion a day sort of volume, again, would not hurt my feelings. Next, moving on to minerals. Minerals, again, are going to be a pretty dark spot on the horizon. Tritanium, again, the values are washed out here. We're looking pretty stable, just above 6.0. If we zoom in, again, volumes are, we saw a huge set of buy orders evaporate. And we're sitting at about 5 billion units on order, which is good, but I expect this to slowly climb north of 10 billion over the course of November and December, which should drive the price under 6.0. I don't know where the floor is, but I think that, I think it'll take a good 6 weeks to get there. But I expect the demand side of Tritanium to start drying up, even if the supply doesn't really rise much. With the new mining changes, for Tritanium specifically, I expect that we will not see a lot of new meters cubed of Tritanium come to market, other than alphas mining, other than high-sec people being high-sec people. But what I think we will see is that out in nullsec, where people are consuming these minerals, and out especially in wormhole space, the value per meter cubed will not be high enough, and they will just start stacking Tritanium to the ceiling, essentially, which will mean that demand for Tritanium products out to nullsec will dry up real quick. Next, moving on to pyrite. Pyrite is sagging down to 8.4. Again, I think there's still room to fall here. We're seeing the supplies aren't terribly oversold at the moment, sitting at about 5 billion units on order, which isn't terrible. But I think pyrite is going to be the low end clobbered most by the new stuff. I think it compresses halfway decently, so when you are exporting raw materials to pay your miners, whether that is to a local in nullsec or if you are bringing it all the way out back to real market to be decompressed, refined, and sold on the open market. I think pyrite volumes will nearly double in the new paradigm, and that means the prices are going to go down pretty sharply. I expect probably something in the 7.0 range by the end of the year. Next, Mexilon. Mexilon, I think, is a bit of a mixed bag. It's hard to get enough of it, so even if mining yields improve, I think the prices will stay relatively stable. We're seeing a big dip here in the average numbers, but if we zoom in, we're still seeing a pretty close to 70 per unit price. Volumes are ticking up towards 1 billion units on order, which again is bad news if you're holding Mexilon. If you're holding Mexilon, you need to be out of it on patch day. If you're in this far, you might as well hold it to patch day, but I don't know if you're going to get the 75 you're really aiming for. It's again a bit of a mixed bag. I think that ECs will consume a lot of this stuff. It's a good bet when heavy industry is involved to bet on Mexilon, but I think that this picture will be over and done with by the Sunday after patch days. So you better have a plan to sell this stuff or be holding onto it forever, because I think you have maybe a 5-day window to get rid of it. Isogen continues to take a clobbering, and I'm going to have to eat my words on the 100 ISK price target. Looks like the increased Ombre yields are just going to eat the crap out of Isogen. Again, we're still not seeing a lot of supply coming to market yet, but speculators are driving the price down. It could, over the next 3 or 4 days, come up over 80. So if you were able to get a 70-ish buy order, you could maybe make a few bucks, but it's a pretty risky proposition. It's about a 50-50, and once the new patch hits, I expect us to be up near 1 billion units on order once miners start coming online, which I think is going to drive the price again down sub 70. Probably into 65 territory. I just don't know when or how we get there. Things are getting going to be pretty bad for Isogen. So if you're holding Isogen, I would get rid of it. Noxium, again, I expect this to be relatively stable. We were at 420 every day last week, but we're down at 400 today. Again, we saw a big glut of supply come out to sell, but we've reduced back down to the 100 million mark. I expect this to rise to about 150 million units on order, which will drive us under the 400 line, but I don't think this is a terrible investment. It's not a great one either, but you could do a lot worse. I think this is a decent place to stockpile for some price spiking, but you're going to have to be really on the ball if you want to play that game. And you're going to want to try and get this stuff as cheap as you possibly can to play some of the volatile swings that may come up in the new regime. Zydrine is holding level at 950, which is a bit of a surprise to me because my target is about 800. Again, we're seeing stability at 150 million units on order. I still have an expectation of about 300 million of these things coming to market after patch day, once the requals start going up to full speed. It may take 2 or 3 weeks to get there. Like, we may not be there until after Thanksgiving. Things tend to get really quiet over Thanksgiving break week. But I'm expecting the volumes on here to be north of 200 million, up near 250 million, which should drive the price down to at least 900. Oops, wrong button. Next, Megasite is showing some rebounding, but do not believe this. This is a terrible omen. We are at almost 1100, but tracking back down towards 1K. Again, my price target on here is about 900. I still expect double the volume to be showing up here. We were at 125 on dev blog day, and I expect to be back at that level once requals are yielding and exporting their wares, which definitely is going to push this under the 1K mark down towards 900. It's probably going to bottom out at 950 because I think enough people believe in it to try to prop it up. But this is unsustainable, and prices are going down pretty hard. And last but not least, Morphite had been down at 8,500 and is back over 9K, which is good news, but I think this was a overly weak period right here. If we zoom in, we see somebody bought out a big chunk of this stuff, resetting the price. Again, I expect yielded Morphite to stay relatively stable. I don't expect a lot of new Morphite coming to market because I expect that a high percentage, like 90% plus of the available Morphite is already making it to market. This will not turn around for real until somebody starts really driving some fights, until we start seeing some increases in capital ship module sales and bomber, interceptor, and interdictor sales. I think this is going to stay weak at 9K. Again, my price target for this is 10K. I just don't know when you're going to get it. So if you're holding on to it, it's not a bad time to buy a couple extra stakes at sub 9, but I think you're still going to hold it until February at least. Moving on to fuel. Isotopes are looking relatively stable. Looks like some people in the market are finally starting to hear my words about nitrogen being a bad bet. Also, I think my blog went out like then. So again, I'm gonna reiterate this for you guys. If you're holding nitrogen, you need to sell it right now. This is the last weekend to really get rid of it, and I would not want to be caught dead holding it after Ascension, because I think it's gonna lose about 100 ISK per unit price once Ascension hits. This is because I expect a lot of Caldari industry towers to be coming down. I expect a lot of the fuel load to be coming down, and I expect mining yields to be improved enough that nullsec has to rely a little bit less on highsec to meet its needs, making a 1-2-3 punch for nitrogen. So, and again, the corollary is that the new the new boosting modules should require a bunch of this stuff, but there's so much of it, and how much of it do you really need? I think that only 25% of what is getting destroyed is going to be reabsorbed by the new boosting charges. So this, I think, is good news for your Amar people at 600. That's not a bad price to be buying in if you wanted to make a last-minute bet. Hydrogen is another risky but not terrible bet. Like, I don't think you'll make a ton of money, but you probably won't lose any if you buy any hydrogen. Oxygen is a loser. I wouldn't buy it, but nitrogen, I think, is coming down to 750 at least on patch day, and long-term target of 700. So this party's over, but grab the Amar fuel at 600. That's as good a buy order as I'm ever going to have. And again, fuel blocks, we still see a lot of strength in the Caldari fuel blocks. I expect that to fall. Galente is a little bit too weak given its price. And everybody else is in line with where you'd expect them. So nothing really exciting on the fuel block front. Last is strontium. We saw a big spike during Vegas as goons made a big show about going to war and then promptly being done with it. Prices are staying steady at 825. Supplies are looking a little bit thin, but I expect that to recover with Ascension. So I wouldn't bet on this particular shortage getting you up to 8.5. Moving on to Outliers. Looking at the hold on one sec. Let me not hawk and cough in your guys' ears. Not a lot interesting going on here. Again, things are looking really anemic in the Tech 2 markets. So we're seeing a lot of volatility at the bottom in your carbonides, but not a lot of action at the tops in your fermionic condensates and ferrogels. We are seeing cesium on a rise. Again, looks like somebody, some people may have changed hands. Supplies may have been liquidated, or somebody's starting up a brand new venture. Prices are high for the moment, but I don't know how long that can sustain when there's still 2 million units of this stuff on the market and not a lot of Tech 2 for it to go into. Looking at PI4s, the markets are looking pretty stable. I expected more action ahead of Ascension this week. I expected things to start turning up into Ascension, but like broadcast nodes are tracking down, and organic mortar applicators are pretty flat. Recursive computing modules aren't bad. Nanofactories aren't bad. Those are two that I'd be looking to sell this weekend. But I mean, holding self-harmonizing power cores is bad at the moment. Sterile conduits isn't great. I still have faith. I just don't know how much money you're going to end up making off of this. Seika, I would love to know what the over-under is once you're done with this whole thing. So, yeah, it's not great. And then, hot tip right before the show, Jeronica and Seika and one other person. Let me make sure I got all the names. Oh no, it's just Jeronica and Seika. We're hot on the Tech 1 salvage ahead of the new rigs going into ECs. And so I looked at the Tech 2 ones. The Tech 2 ones weren't very interesting, but they might get interesting over the weekend. Worth a second look if this is something you want to go invest in. But we see a big tick up on contaminated Lorenz fluid. Contaminated nanite compound are tracking up hard. Ward consoles are up pretty significantly. Again, if it goes into an EC rig, you might want to buy it, but caveat, the party might already be over. So I'd be watching personally if I wanted to play this game, like right this second. contaminated Lorenz fluid buy orders are not a bad bet, but if you're watching this more than 30 minutes after the show, that might have turned around. Ward consoles are showing some weakness, and I might put together a opportunistic buy order at 50K if I were so inclined. I think a savvy investor can jump in on something like the armor plates that are crashing, and play some of the margin as the heat increases in these markets. But I would be extremely careful, and I'd want to be out of these by the weekend after Ascension. So play well, be careful, make a ton of ISK, but don't just jump in blindly. You can lose your shirt if you're not timing this stuff right. Next, another interesting one coming out of Wormhole Space, I believe, is the Neurovisual Input Matrix. Pretty sure that's a wormhole item. Gonna feel like an asshole if that's one of those, one of the drone items that was popping up. We were hot a couple of weeks ago. Actually, I think this is probably one of those drone items that I should know better. But we're seeing a big crash as what's probably an extra supply coming to market. Next, the Coveter is on our list as going way down, a lot more than I would expect. This may be an overcompensation for the price of the things, but if you needed to buy some, this would be a decent chance to jump in. I just don't know when you're going to get your money back. The Gnosis is another interesting one. So this dive is early, to be honest. So we should expect every Omega that was active at the start of October is going to get a Gnosis in their present drawer, whatever it's called. And I would expect that to drop the price, since alphas are going to want to use these things. They're going to be great, and there's going to be a whole bunch of them, extra ones coming to market. And then somebody sold all of theirs a week early. Like, did they not get the memo that that Ascension is still a week away? I don't understand what's going on here. So prices are down. I think they're going to get worse before they get better. Sub 50 million. That's a 50 million price. Is not a bad price if you wanted to buy. I think that something in a 45, 48 would be my target if I wanted to stock up on these things. I think these are going to be a great place to speculate in a 3-month kind of term, as people burn off the ones they have and demand peaks up, with people wanting to, alphas wanting to be able to use better items. The Gnosis is not a bad place to put some bets, especially if alphas become a useful fleet tool, and you say, well, I mean, what's an FU fleet when we can bring Gnosises instead? Wouldn't be a terrible thing to do. Vexor Navy issue is another interesting one. Things got a little bit tight while the Galente were fighting for Avoinen. Prices got spiky. They're coming back into line at 80 million. Again, I probably should have called this last week. I didn't think... Again, it's really hard to look at these and say, oh, well, it's stay at 90 million, or is it coming back down again? I should have seen the Avoinen shortage as a thing. So, my bad. Moving on to prediction review, which means I should have had that in the other thing. Start with elite drone AIs, keep climbing. I didn't put the zoom in graph because the scales get really washed out. The prices keep rising. I think we're going to stay relatively stable at a 36 million level, I think is what that is. Again, I can't read these any better than you guys can. We're still in shortage. I kind of expect drop rates to improve with Ascension. Maybe they'll come out of the new NPC fleets. We'll see. It's hard to project exactly what what's going to happen. I don't have an ear in CCP to tell you about loot tables, but I don't think that I think the demand is going to be high enough, and it's going to be justified to amp the drop tables a little bit. The Gila, I believe I said last week that this was in pretty decent buy order territory with as much supply it has been. I either said that or 2 weeks ago. I cannot remember. But all of a sudden, we're seeing a sharp shortage, and the prices are responding. Now, again, this could just be a local spike like this one here. But with as short as we're getting here, I'd be watching over the weekend to see if we stay under that 100 mark. 100 orders mark to see if we can get above 280 in the longer term. For those tuned in live, this is not a bad time to jump in the buy order pool at 240 million to play that margin, because if you can get in right this second at 240, 242 and jump out at 265, 270 or 280, I mean, that's not bad money. I don't think you can sell more than a dozen of these things. And now that I've said it on air, don't all of you guys go do the same thing, because you'll all lose your shirts and then I'll look like an asshole. But that's at least an interesting indicator right there. Stratios was another one we looked at last week. We were looking at a shortage, which I attested to, which I credited to the two wormhole talks at EVE Vegas being so interesting and people wanting to go jump in and join Signal Cartel. But supplies have recovered and prices are dropping. They look like they're overcorrecting though. So getting these 170 buy orders is not a bad idea in my opinion. So I would think about jumping on that. Another one we've been watching for the last couple of weeks is the mid-grade Snake Epsilons. We've been watching this rise and fall and rise and fall, and usually we don't see a third. Like you can sometimes bet on twos, but it's really rare to have threes from my experience watching these things. I'm not sure what is driving this volatility in snake grade epsilons, but it sure is interesting. And I said last week that an enterprising person who wanted to own a market, these high meta markets look like there's a lot more instability in them than usual. And if you're savvy about it and you set up your research correctly, there's a lot of money to be made between the peaks and valleys. Next, moving on to our violence report. Not a lot of interesting things going on here. Again, Sfipples are losing popularity. Vexor Navy issues are still pretty popular, but general PvP stats are down for the week. Not a lot of interesting here on the list, except for a, what's the one that just got on here? Not the Stratios, the other one. Is not showing on this list, so we're not going to talk about it. Next, if we look at active systems, again, we saw Avoynin a couple of weeks ago was nice and hot, but things are staying relatively stable. Jita and Tama leading the charges. Otherwise, 15W TAC GC is our hotspot of the week. Looking at our hot regions, again, Black Rise was hot, still reasonably hot given the circumstances, but Pureblind, Citadel, and Forge are always on the list. Tribute is the new interesting one. If you guys wanted somewhere to maybe set up a new shop. But with that, I'm going to have to end the Eve Prosper Market Show. I've been your host, Lockefox, and we've been live with, let's see, looks like 25 people on YouTube and 20 people on Twitch, brings us to 45, which is not a terrible turnout. I want to thank everybody who tuned in live. If you want to watch the show, we are at a new time in-game, same time US. That's 0400 in-game time. That's 8 o'clock Pacific, Thursday night, US time. We're on every week. We will not be here for Thanksgiving week, but do keep tuned to the channel. I'm hoping to do some office hours streams as I try to catch up on my code debt. If you want to follow the show, Just remember Eve Prosper. That'll get you to Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and our blog. Be sure to tune into the blog. I just published our October economic report, which has all the news we talked about last week, but in better detail with new graphs. If you want to, I expect to have another dev blog out soon. If you want to support the show, the very best way to do so is through our Patreon at patreon.com/EveProsper. Even $1 goes a very long way. It does keep us on the air. It keeps the show going week after week, and it keeps it ad-free and open to everyone, thanks to our patrons. If you can't give, we completely understand. It is a spaceship game. I am just a weirdo with a microphone. And if you guys enjoy the show, please share it with your friends. I know you guys want all the market secrets to yourself, but more people here means more people to talk shop with, means that more people are watching the markets, and you guys can all work together because we all get better together. But with that, I've been your host, Lockefox. We will be back next week, same time, to look at the impacts of Ascension. And why don't you guys all fly safe? And that's a show. So if you guys give me 2 seconds, we're going to put the air back on because it gets hot in here. And we're going to look at the chats. Signal Cartel flies purely fitted strats. I believe that. Sir Angel, Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets are the best spreadsheets. There's a lot of cool tools. I even have one for doing industry sheets, which I'll probably have to figure out how to upgrade into the new ESI, hopefully, maybe. Actually, if I need OAuth, I don't know if I can do that. Anyway. Oh, I forgot to pimp the freaking Tweet Fleet chat. I suck. If you want to talk to me, if you want to get in touch with me, I should have said this during the show. Links to join the Tweet Fleet Slack are down in the doobly-doo. And that's the very best place to get in touch with me. We are rolling up a Prosper Discord, but right now I'm just trying to get dev people in there. We do have a dev fleet channel that we talk code on, and so it's not a lot of ISK, it's a lot of Python because everything's in Python, because Python is the greatest coding language ever made. Fight me at 1v1 at the sun. Let's see. Yep. So, last part of the show is open for Q&A. It's audience participation time. If you guys have questions, do feel free to use the chat, or I guess the chat, or if it's YouTube, the chat. Actually, I bet both Twitch and YouTube put the chat over there. Let's see. I look like an asshole because I probably said the scales wrong on a couple of those things, but that's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. And R.I.P. Leonard Cohen. Nothing? You're going to let me talk about my Python logger and how annoyed I am at the timed rotating file handler? Markets for Gold is asking if Citadel trade is being included in the economic reports. It is. Quant has confirmed it multiple times. Those numbers do get reported. Now, We have a blind spot on this show for Citadel data because Eve Central doesn't do them. Working on fixing that, but I got that's my next project is the order book parser, so we can transfer from having Eve Central as a dependency to Crest being our dependency. Whoops. The mining raids from Shiverwarp is asking about the mining raids. If you want to know more information about those, you should go check out Johnny Pugh's channel. He's been getting into the thick of it with those. Again, when it comes to patch stuff, I'm a really bad source for this because this show runs completely on automation and there's no way to hook into Singularity for that automation. So I can't know what the impacts are off of the CC numbers because I just can't. I can't. I only have so much time, and I'd rather write Python than play on the test server. So, mea culpa. And markets for gold. The other interesting thing is it's great to see the breakout, but again, because I can't report on Citadels really specifically here, it's one of the pieces of the report I tend to drop because I care about I care about the biggest pieces of the economy as a whole to report to you guys. And that gets a little in the weeds for what I think is good for the audience. Just because, so if I may be an asshole for a second, I'm very conscious about word count on my economic articles. Like I very specifically try to keep them under 700 words, under 600 if I can help it, because I think that the content is so dry that writing any more than that isn't going to get read. That I don't think I can command the attention of people beyond that without splitting it into a new article about a specific facet. So and right now my plate is so full with developer stuff that it's hard to get the time to go dive into those other facets. So again, I leave it open for other bloggers. I do like reading other blogs. Markets for ISK is a great one. Noisy Gamer, even though I had to unfollow him on Twitter this week, because fucking politics, man. And DeLone Wolf does a great job at his stuff, and he actually goes through some of the Singularity stuff. So I don't try to be, as my CEO, my RIRL CEO likes to say, I don't want to be your single pane of glass. I hate that buzzword, but the honest truth is that I want to stand here as the NPR marketplace and tell you what the general gist is, and I want to tell you like where we are in the biggest schemes week to week, rather than getting into the weeds about, let's look at this patch or look at this this war, because I don't have time to dig down like that. We got to pick our battles, and I only have so much time. Oh, yay! Like your blog. I always enjoy having another. There need to be more economic bloggers, because I always feel like I don't have anyone to check myself against, and I never know if I'm just spouting my own weirdness and everybody's nodding along. Because, well, Locke knows what he's talking about. He wouldn't lead us astray. He's making it up like you guys. He just has better tools. I just have data and Python and graphs. Like that's all I have that you don't. And I want to give you guys the graphs so you guys can make them too. So let's see. Thank you, McGrogan, for the thumbs up. I do appreciate it. Oh, God, I'm so freaking tired. It's been a weird week. But we still got another 15-ish minutes, so I won't end this too quickly. Um, yeah, I want it all, and I want it now. So again, if no other questions, I'm going to go talk about how much I hate the timed rotator file handler. So I've been moving towards, if you go to github.com/eveprosper, I've been building up a whole new version 2 of our tool base, like completely from the ground up, a rework of everything. And part of that is because I've seen the light at work about how to write actual Python, so it's not just another language that's slightly easier to write than C. If you write Python Pythonically, it works a lot better. But you have to unlearn how to write C, essentially. So one of the things I added was a common, so that we can, every script can use the same logger. If everybody's using the same logger and somebody needs to go dig into something, well, you can always parse the loggers the same way. They all work exactly the same way, every single one. And there's been enough onesie-twosie things I wanted to add to stuff like that, like make sure we're using the same config parser, and it'd be really nice if live scripts could alert out to a chat program if things go wrong, and and like all of these great features. And so I went ahead and put these all together, and then I wrote this Discord bot to test out discord.py, and it stops working after a day. Well, it just works poorly after a day, and then it turns out it's not logging anymore, and I'm like, what the shit? And it's been bugging me for like 3 weeks. What happens is that you start it up, everything's working fine for the first day, then the log handler tries to rotate, and then I don't have a log anymore. That all the logs are gone. And what good is a logger that destroys your fucking log? Turns out, timed rotating file handler is an idiot and doesn't check for types, doesn't check data types before it deletes something. So it deletes the it reads the old log into cache, deletes the old log file, and as it goes to rotate to put that in its old file, in a new file name, it crashes and says, I can't, something went wrong, things crash, and so you end up with no log file and the old log file destroyed, and now going forward with no file handle to log to, and the thing complains the entire time. So this has been bugging me because I haven't been able to figure out why. I've dug into it so deep. I changed so many settings. Finally got tests on the thing today. And because I was porting I had a great shower thought last week about how to redesign the thing to be more extensible, and I needed it for a work thing. I was like, oh, I'll bring it over, and I got to write tests for work stuff anyway. So I'll write the tests up, and I'll redo the framework so that it works better with our stuff, and I'll make sure, now that I know that timed rotating file handler is a dickhole, and I'll put a test on it, and I go do it at work, everything's fine. All the tests are green, life is good. And I'm like, well, that's weird. Well, so let's port the test back from the work thing. Now that I have like what the logic of it is, let's put the logic together so I can actually test rotating file handler. It's broken on mine. I finally found the freaking problem. Config parser only returns strings, and timed rotating file handler doesn't check to make sure it's an int before going to town on the freaking values. So finally got to the bottom of that. It's been a thorn in my side for like 2 weeks. And it's just not good to not have logs, right? So that's my cool Python story for the week. Loud Noises is asking, at what point are you a major market player in your niche? Is there a way to tell? Personally, since nobody ever publishes their numbers, you never really know, right? You'll never actually know who you're really competing against in most cases, unless they're really bad at their job. And so personally, I've never really cared to know if I'm number one or not. I always try to work in ways that mean that I am a fish in the stream rather than the biggest fish trying to lead the pack, if I may mix my metaphors. So like my rule on Tech 2 production was that I never wanted to produce more than 20% of the demand for a product. Is that I could sell in Jita all day, but if I got more than 20% of the market, of the consumable demand, I would be spending more time trying to wash my orders and get my cash than it was worth doing. And if I instead said, oh, well, I'll only go up to this level on this item and I'll diversify into the second item and third item and fourth item, well, then they can all move reasonably quickly and I can have my cash out the door rather than trying to control the market and be at the whims of the rises and falls and have to really care about error bars and all that other shit. I can just come to Jita, be out of it in a day or two, have my cash in hand, get back to work in industries. So I never want to be the biggest guy in the market, right? Being the biggest guy means that you are exposed to the biggest risks, that your mistakes, either your mistakes or the mistakes of the idiots you're playing with, they can eat your lunch out of nowhere, and you're stuck holding the bill. That's the way I think of it. And if you sell a buy orders at a profit, that's fine. I just think that like the margin between buy and sells a lot of the time is worth playing. That when it came to doing production industry, I enjoyed doing like I set my margin, I set my stuff up in a way that 0-1 isking would not burn me out, right? Like I very specifically made sure that I didn't come to market with too much items to end up screwing shit up. Because if I ended up making up like 50% of the market, which I could totally do. When I was working at full production, I could have easily been 50 or 60% of any given market. And what that meant is that every night I not only had an hour's worth of clicking to get all of my producers through their production of the night, but I also had another hour I had to make sure that I was coming in every couple of hours to make sure that I was still the best order and make sure that I hadn't been underpriced and make sure some idiot hadn't come through and cut my entire margin out by moving the price, a million ISK rather than 1,000 ISK and all that other shit. And it's not worth it. It's not fucking worth it. What you care about as a trader is how do I get paid? And how do I get paid in the least painful way possible, despite the idiots I have to play against? I was near 100 lines when I was producing at the top. I think I was at like 80, 85 lines, both all in Tech 2. And by that point, I was optimizing. I was min-maxing, like spending an extra 2% on components so that I could save 100 production hours out of my week. Essentially, like I had a budget I had this great spreadsheet, and now it doesn't work, but it showed the production value, the market price, the percentage margin difference, and the cost it would take to, like, you'd put in everything you needed in there, and you'd say, oh, well, if I just went to the market, it only cost me like 15 million extra ISK to just buy it. You know what? Fuck it. 15 million ISK when I'm already spending 40 billion, fine. Sold. Absolutely. And this is how I was able to do, like, I did bombers and interceptors in huge quantities pre-Creus, because not a lot of people knew how to use decryptors, and people were producing in 10 or 15 quantities a day, and I was they were coming to market with maybe 20 units a week, and I was able to come to market with 200 units a week, and the market just ate them up. I could just get rid of them so fast. It was great. Several times about bounty nerfs. Any hints the CCP might be coming? So when it comes, Carrie's asking in YouTube that I've been talking about bounty nerfs But have we heard any news from CCP? So this is purely speculation on my point. The values coming out of bounties are getting really hot. And we saw with Citadel that when the money gets too good, the nerf bat comes around. And what happened last time was that CCP sort of ninja nerfed wormholes by messing with the AI, the way the sites actually run, and that you could still make a decent amount of money. It just took more effort to get that money. They basically nerfed the ISK per hour that you could suck out of these systems. And I don't know how they're going to do it, but I mean, if I were a betting man, if the new AI system works out for them, we could see a rebalancing of belt rats to the point where they are harder to kill, and the bounty payout, like the ISK per hour, comes down, even if the bounty payouts might go up, in a way that makes it so that you have to do more effort to kill the guys, and you have to make sure that you're PvP fit and all that kind of stuff. So I've heard no particulars. I have no better information than you guys. It's just a gut feeling that when things get too good, the nerf bat's coming. And I don't think the nerf bat's coming soon. Like, if it comes before February, I will be shocked. I don't think that we'll actually see any traction on this until perhaps March, ahead of FanFest, for a spring release. Like, if I were a betting man, I think that things are going to stay hot until April or May. But I don't have anything better than my gut and 10 plus years of watching the game. Way too many years. Fuck, it's going to be 12 this year. God damn it. Still got some time. I'd like to run till 9:15 here. I feel like that's not right. Is my clock stupid? Am I just this bad? Yeah, because we did 30 minutes ahead. Then we did 9:45. Yeah, okay, we're still on time. I can math. Everything's fine. It's older than that. I mean, CCP's having their 20th anniversary this year at FanFest. And a bunch of the European guys want me to go to FanFest, and I just don't know where I'm going to find the $2,000 to take me and my wife. It'd be nice. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Let's see. But yeah, markets for ISK. If you want to talk more Python stuff, do PM me somewhere. Even if that's in game, I'll get to it eventually. I'll get you the Discord invite, because you. Again, if we're gonna talk high meta stuff and we're gonna talk Python stuff, that's what I need. I just didn't not to be jerks to the fans. I don't want to talk I want that channel for dev work. I don't want to talk Eve news in it, to be honest. Oh, hey, Enigma, and I did respond to your email, so do come join us on the thing. And if you're right about if I'm wrong about the mineral stuff and you're right, well, I'll owe you a beer. You'll have to rub it in my face. I do appreciate being told when I'm wrong, actually, because it happens so often. I need to be put back in my place. Shiver Warp. Yes, wormholes are in my stats. They just aren't. So I don't know. I don't know how they how the filter works to get wormholes in the top 10 list. it'll count them, but I don't think the wormhole regions do anything close to enough to net destruction inside a single region to count as... Oh, I'm thinking wrong. Thank you. Sorry. I'm an asshole. Let's see. I don't think they do enough net destruction week to week to show up on the top 5. But yeah, we do have wormhole stats. I'm not pre-filtering them out in the queries. But yes. Wormholes are in the stats. They are. That might be why Stratioses show up every week. And yeah, again, Mighty Enigma is asking about FanFest. Probably not. If I'm going, it's like a 35% chance. I have to... Again, it's like $2,000 to get me and my wife there, and I don't... it's irresponsible. I have shit that needs to get done. I need a new car. I have 200,000 miles on my 15-year-old car. I should buy one of those instead of going to FanFest. I would love to go. I would love to talk at EVE Vegas. Not at EVE Vegas. I want to talk at EVE Vegas, but I didn't apply this year. There was no economic talk at EVE Vegas. Yeah, seeing as Quant wasn't there, we might see some out of EVE Amsterdam, because Quant is going to be at EVE Amsterdam. But again, I think that Quant is sitting on his laurels because he now has the monthly economic report, and we have to do the hard work for him. He just makes the graphs. And I mean, as much as we love Quant for economics, he's not the economist for EVE. He's more in the business development department. Last I checked, he like works directly with people like Siegel about like what would monetization do and that kind of stuff. So that would be cool. The Mighty Enigma is wants to give a talk about MMA and the parallels of MMA and PvP. That'd be pretty cool. I'd watch that. I mean, if I gave a talk, again, like I said at the beginning of the show, I'd probably do something along the tagline of "You're fucking wrong about Plex," because god damn it, oh, I hate reading market discussion. It's so bad, and it's just like, it's that when you're a professional, when you work hard at something and you know, you've gone through all the shit and you're an expert in whatever that field is, and you hear your scrub lord courtmates being like, oh yeah, no, I made 50 billion off of level 4 missions. Like, no, you didn't. Fuck you. I run in a laser fitted Raven. Like, shut the fuck up. That's what it feels like. And I do enjoy people learning and like, oh, I did this thing and it's interesting and isn't that neat? And let me think about it. Maybe like make a conversation about it. Sure, fine. But God, the people who like my favorites are when Plex is at record highs. Every news site publishes like there are a dozen Plex articles that come out, right? And they always follow this format of, I have a personal political economic theory, whether that's right-leaning, left-leaning, or communist, or whatever. And this is how Plex backs up my assumption, is how they always read. And I fucking hate those. Like, no. Plex is not your marker for making a autonomous communist system. Like, What are you fucking talking about? No, you don't know where all the Plex is going or coming from. You've never held more than like a billion ISK in your freaking wallet ever. Like, don't talk to me about how fucking Plex goes. And like, I shouldn't complain so much. I do enjoy reading it when people are exploring and learning. Like, I love reading the blogs on Neocom. I want to say Rodin's doing them, where like, this is what we're doing, and these are our setbacks, and we started trading in this, and we're making a bunch of money, and oh, I found out about how to optimize my red frog stuff. Like, that I love reading that, because it's trying to become an expert. It's the learning process, which is a lot of fun to read. The research part of it is a lot of fun, but coming in guns a-blazing because you're an armchair economist who is parroting a bunch of bad stuff from all of your friends, like, that's some Facebook level politics right there. Like, you just stop. But I'm hoping that I'm hopeful for the new mining fleets. Again, I'm not in a good spot to speculate on them ahead of the patches. Again, that I don't have time to get on the CC server, and all of my tools are automation tools that help make this show run quickly and efficiently. They're reactionary. They don't see the future. They tell me about the past. And with no past, I can't talk about them very much. And yeah, it's I'm excited for them. I'm excited if the new AI does not destroy the cluster the way the Drifter incursions did. Because I'm actually really interested in emergent AI in MMOs. I think that's a big future thing, and if CCP can nail it, they will be solving a really big problem. If you guys were watching CCP Quant 2 years ago, when you talked at the Eve FanFest keynote, his first keynote, everyone was floored by the amount of destruction and effort that goes into destroying PvE targets. And despite the fact that we all talk about EVE being a PvP game, there was 90% of the player time and energy going into PvE metrics. And I mean, if they can nail it and get adaptive and interesting AI going on so that that content becomes more emergent, more destructive, more engaging, I think they have a real chance to make a really big difference in the way things go. Yeah, and Mighty Enigma is saying that listening to people rant about winning blackjack when they don't really know what the hell they're talking about. Yeah, it's a similar thing. Yeah, there's a thing, and card counting is a thing, and it takes a lot of effort and a certain amount of skill, and it's not a great way to earn a living, and when you wash it all out, but like, it's a thing. So yeah, it's like, one of the things, I'll make this my ending story. Like, so for the longest time I flew in generalist high-sec corps, right? And those generalist high-sec bears all have that, like, that smarmy smugness of like, why would I go to nullsec when I could lose things, when here in high-sec I'm just making free money and whatever, all the minerals I mine are free, smug. And you're like, no, but you're wrong, and you're wasting all your time, and oh, geez, how many times can you run damsel in distress before you pull your hair out? Well, whatever. And then you go out to nullsec, and it's the same friggin' story from those bears who know just as little as the high-sec bears, but now have a superiority complex because, oh yeah, I'm a nullsec guy, and I kill people sometimes when I go into fleets and press F1 when the guy tells me to press F1. Like, you're not any better than the high-sec guy, and your business plan is shit, and you're still losing money just like he's losing money. And oh my god, just stop. So, yeah, I get really twitchy. Like, I think one time I ended up in a thing, and I was talking about, like, how to run, like, oh, I run this, this industry thing, and I do this thing, and, it works pretty well, but I thought I'd go out and, join the Great War kind of thing, and this guy then proceeded to give me a browbeating about how I didn't know what I was talking about, and then linked my own fucking blog at me. I'm like, that's my blog. Did you not see who... What? or some amount of, like, not getting it, and then I got my own blog linked at me as a resource, and I'm like, but what? Oh, this game, man, this game. And free-to-play is going to bring a whole bunch of new people in, and they're not going to know what they're doing, and I'm hoping people start up blogs, because I do like reading the blogs. Just pro tip to all your blog writers, keep it short. More than about 600 words is usually too much. It's not a hard and fast rule, of course. There's always an exception, but I work in 650 word chapters personally, that if I need more than that, then it needs to be 2 articles, and then I get to my 1,300 words, but I split it up 2 times. I think you'll see a lot better engagement in the shorter term things, especially as you go up the dry scale. Like, again, I produce graphs for you guys. Like, this is, when I explain it to, like, my real life coworkers, they look at me like I'm insane. Like, okay, so this spaceship game, and there's a lot of people who play it. There's like 100,000 of them or something, or 300,000 of them, and I talk to about 5,000 of them about the fake internet economy, and I make graphs and API stuff, and I have this whole repository of Python code, and they're like, "Are you touched? Do you have a problem? Do we need to call someone? I don't feel safe." And that's how. So I've changed to describing the show as Mad Money with none of the enthusiasm. So, like, most of the people I read don't break the rule, and when they do break the rule, they have a good reason. Like, Noisy Gamer can go pretty long, but he usually has enough content to fill it out. But, like, Crossing Zebras pays on words. Like, you get a bonus if you're using, like, more than 1,000 words, and there are so few articles and things that really deserve that many words. So, like, if you're starting a blog, please keep it brief. Make more of it, just in smaller bites. That's my brand building pro tip of the week. And otherwise, I think we're going to bring this show to a close. My one piece of advice for the week is just please don't be a dick. It's been a rough week politically, and I've had to call so many people out of my fucking lists because they've all of a sudden become major pundits that have suddenly important opinions to say now we're onto the crying stage. And please just don't be shitty to each other. Just stop being shitty to each other. That's all I really ask. Please just have some compassion. If you're going to be mean, like, follow that motherly advice. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. It's going to be a shitty couple of weeks, couple of months, couple of years. Whether you won or lost, just don't be shitty. That's all I really ask. And don't fight strawmen. That's the other piece of it. Just watching the whole echo chamber them bullshit from both sides. Like I know it. I understand it. I've been there. Like I moved from Idaho to Seattle, so I had political whiplash getting over here. I get it on both sides. But just stop being fucking shitty about it. Just stop. It's going to be shitty enough already. And if you post a bunch of bullshit in my comments, I will ban you. That's the other half of it. If I see centipede bullshit in my comment stream, I'm just going to fucking ban it. Yeah, so that went longer than I expected. Be excellent to each other. We'll be back next week, same time. We won't be back the week after that because of Thanksgiving, I believe, if I can read calendars correctly. But replays will be on YouTube as soon as I press the stop button. So thank you again, everybody who tuned in. Be excellent. We'll be back next week.